Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my Age of Wonders 4 video on the new open beta that we just got this morning. I'm going to be actually releasing this video, I think, 24 hours after the update came out so that I have some time to make a nice thumbnail and make sure I didn't miss anything important here. I have a guest today. Cody is somebody who knows a lot about the game, and I'm really interested to get his input on the stuff. How you doing today, Cody?
Hi, I'm doing well, and thanks for having me on the video.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy that you have time not just to offer your input, but to save me from going through the process of actually activating the open beta because it has this big scary text right here, or not big. It's got this red text here that makes me very nervous to jump over to it. It seems to indicate that if you go over to the open beta, that it's going to invalidate your old rulers, and I didn't want to mess up any of my old save files for another video that I'm working on right now. I'm working on a summoning guide that will come out next week. But I also have this big multiplayer that I didn't want to ruin by going over to the new beta and invalidating a bunch of stuff. So big thank you to Cody. You've saved me a lot of worry and stress around this, and you're helping me bring, I think, useful information to the people. There's two really exciting things in here. We got two new classes. We've got the Death Knight and the what's the other one called, Cody?
The Spellblade.
Spellblade and the Death Knight look really interesting. For those of you who are familiar with the Age of Wonders 4, you may be familiar with the five classes that were introduced with the hero update. The one that came out with the Tiger update, the 1.0, back in, I want to say, early November. So now we have two new ones, and they're kind of like hybrid classes. We were taking a second to look through them in game because there isn't too much information in here about the new classes. I think they say, yeah, this one, the Death Knight, can equip great axes, one-handed weapons, shields, fist weapons, and polearms. He seems like a bit of a warrior, but he's a hybrid between a warrior and somebody who can do like debuffs and summoning undead, right?
Yeah, they took a part of the mage and the ritualist. So it's actually two classes on one side combined with some melee from the warrior. So three classes actually.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that it was three. I heard us say it was hybrid earlier, but there was so much going on here. There's a lot that's very easy to miss. Like, for example, I when I first read this, I didn't even see that they separated out the class restrictions and the loadout. So now your dragons don't have to be a nature dragon if you want to use ritualist. That's a pretty cool change that they've introduced. I think that it was kind of neat how it limited certain builds. You had to go for certain specific things if you wanted your dragon to be a ritualist. Um, but I think that this is going to open up a lot more diverse levels of play, so it might actually be great in the end. I may end up liking this change in the long run. Um, what else can we say here? There's also they changed pillaging, didn't they? We talked about that. There's a lot of things that people on your Discord have been mentioning. Is there anything that you wanted to mention before we actually jump into what the hero classes give you access to?
Very broadly, there's the pillaging. Like you said, that is a strife culture issue. They could instant pillage, which sounds fun on paper, until you're the target of instant pillaging. It becomes a little less fun. And you could combine this with force march. So that would be the idea behind it. Other
Yeah,
than that, one big one to add to the hero discussion is that they reduced the base stats that heroes have. And this also includes Dragon Lord. I think they left Eldritch Sovereign untouched.
right. Yeah, no, you said the dragons have 20 less hit points and the heroes have 10 less hit points. They all have one less armor and one less resistance in general, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't see that in the heroes part that was listed below, but it's probably somewhere in this wall of text. What I find
Well,
the most
the
exciting is the thing we talked about earlier, these new classes, right?
right.
If you had anything else you wanted to go over first, that's okay. But
No, I was just thinking the Sovereign has the same base stats as heroes, so I wonder if they tied it together. I have to take a look at it.
all right. Yeah, I could see that. So I am now sharing your screen from Discord on my recording so we can start going through how the class works for the Death Knight. Which one is it that we have on the left here?
Right, so the Death Knight class is made up out of 3 different classes from what I can tell. So looking at the left side of the tree, left in the middle, honestly, those seem to be from the warrior thing, with mage on the right and ritualist creeping in like on the very, very right side.
I recognize the ritualist part there. The summon undead or raise undead with the zombie thing, but it doesn't have access to curse in the ritualist tree, does it? Or I can't remember. Actually, wait, it does,
No,
doesn't it?
the curse here is from the mage tree.
Oh, it's so confusing. You're right. Yes. Okay. Now it's coming back to me.
I think the idea was, and it makes sense when I look at it, it's necromancy, magic, melee. That's what Death Knights generally are seen as.
I understand now. And when we were looking at this earlier, you noticed something pretty interesting about the level ups. There's a few new ones, right? Like melee mage.
Yeah, I think I saw 2 in this tree. There is the melee mage here, so behind all the magic stuff, which makes sense. And it kind of reinforces the fantasy of a Death Knight, being up close and personal, but not being unable to use their magic, because that would just ruin the fantasy of the class.
I think that's gonna be really nice on certain like full action things that people just deny with by getting in zone of control. So I love that change. And I think we also noticed that that is not just for Death Knight. That's also on the Spellblade. So it's kind of like two new
Yeah.
like what's the word? They're melee heroes that can operate at a closer range.
As far as I can tell, all these other skills already existed in one place or another. I believe they're all from Warrior. I don't know off the top of my head. I think they are.
You mentioned something about I think the spell shield doesn't have displacement and they have spell penetration, but I don't remember. Yeah, if Death Knight had anything
Yeah,
else quite like that.
the main thing is Death Knight has the bane of all existence, killing momentum. So expect them to be very powerful. Maybe more powerful than warriors. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Mages can engage from pretty far away, so I think it'll be slightly easier to get killing momentum to trigger in certain situations than others. It's really cool that they get that at the very end of their tree.
The good part here is they have the lower damage from the mage. Like the curse, unless you go for this specific one, Frost Curse, it'll be hard to kill something, which I would assume is intentional. They're going to be all about debuffing, raising the dead, um, but still hitting hard
Yeah,
when they attack with like a lance, right, or a two-handed sword.
it makes sense.
So to me, they look good. I'm a little scared because mages are really strong right now. Warriors are really strong right now. Now they've put them together. That's frightening.
I'm really interested to see what people are able to come up with, and if anybody has like any suggestions for builds, make sure you let us know in the comments below because I'm sure lots of people don't know all of the cool things you can do with this all of the options that we have here. There's so many paths you can choose, so many paths you can go down. All right, I think from here we're ready to switch over to the Spellblade.
This class is made up of also mage, but then the left side of their tree, so the damage focused abilities, which basically comes down to evokers, fire and lightning. They do have some adjustments. As we mentioned before, they have melee mage. Um, so these guys are also magic melee based, but instead of giving them warrior, defender, or anything like that, they seem to have taken the skirmisher side of the ranger tree. So it's a little hit and run, maybe? I'm not sure.
Neither of us play skirmisher, the skirmisher side of the ranger class very often, and it's really interesting that they threw this in here because we could be missing things, but it does seem relatively similar. There was something you pointed out about Spellblade 1, 2, and expertise. That's pretty similar to the ranger stuff, but I think it might lend itself more to the magical stuff, right?
Yeah, so they have most of the basic ranger stuff, I believe. There might be some warrior slipped into here. I'm not fully sure about that.
Yeah, Keen Edge I think was in there anyways.
They get slippery and swift, which are the skirmisher benefits, but then they have unique ones for melee and magic damage.
Right.
So they're really focused on being this hybrid, it seems. Um, some basic skirmisher stuff going on. I think Grim Executioner also comes from Warrior. So this
Interesting.
looks like a Warrior Ranger Mage hybrid. Um, this one's a little different, but it's defensive and offensive at the same time.
Hmm.
And the big one I noticed was the Arcfire Burst,
Right.
which originates from the hero within 2 hexes. That damage is pretty chunky. You can see it's already buffed somehow to up to 18. I'm honestly not sure why.
10% or something like that, right?
I have a damage amplifier going on somewhere in my racials probably. Um, so this could go up quite a bit. Now they cannot access channel power, so we won't be seeing like crazy 100 damage AoEs wiping out the battlefield.
Two hexes, wow.
Yeah, but they still seem pretty interesting. They have spell penetration, which is nice. It keeps them relevant later into the game. And actually, early in the game, this is really powerful because most units barely have 3 resistance to begin with.
Yeah, if they have less than 3 resistance, I don't think it drops you down below 0, does it?
No, it does not. The UI, I believe, still shows negative values if you're sundered, but they don't actually do anything. They only amplify damage if you have a weakness, like to a specific school of magic.
Right. That makes sense.
I think the rest is the same here. So it's your basic pyromancy tree, your lightning evoker. One thing I noted is the lightning evoker is a little more streamlined. You're not forced to take displacement as I have a quick sidebar here.
Oh
This mage
wait.
hero.
That I'm just thinking now it's not just displacement that's gone. What's left of displacement? Just left of that by on the other
Yeah, I see
tree.
what you're saying.
You don't have
That's
pretty
guided
far.
projectiles, which a lot of people also had some issues with.
Huh.
Feeling like a tax, they would say, to get to maximized magic.
It's fair.
And fan the flames, I think they took out. Yeah,
Yeah.
fan the flames, which it's all right. It's pretty hard to trigger, honestly.
Okay. I think we've covered these classes at a pretty surface level, and we could move on. I know that you've been hearing a lot of stuff from other people on Discord. Is there anything else like that that you wanted to mention while we're going over to the items, like the new javelin and other things that they introduced?
Um, like general patch notes or still within the heroes?
Yeah, just generally, because I know a lot of people have been talking in Discord about some interesting stuff, not just like how heroes are weaker, but the affinity things
Yeah.
and some other details that I believe we
Um,
talked about before recording.
so putting all the weapons aside, we'll get to those in a second. There is a change. It's easy to glance over, but the command ability that champions have and the channeling ritual that wizard kings have can no longer have their cooldowns reset. I believe
Ooh,
killing momentum, there might be other ways, but killing momentum was able to reset them entirely.
yeah, that's not not amazing.
Well, Wizard King is struggling. I'm not sure if they've addressed that or not, but the command ability from champions, especially the cascading one, resetting that, yeah, that's very powerful.
Yeah, no, one of them has a cooldown on it. I can't remember if that's the one you're talking about, but I feel like you're talking about one of the ones that's once per
Um,
battle.
they are both cooldowns.
Ugh,
They changed it in the last patch. So both Wizard King and Champion have a cooldown on both of the branches.
Uh-huh.
One is free, and one will cost you an action point.
Yeah.
That's kind of the trade-off here. It works for Champion because you have to either sacrifice your ruler's movement for that turn, well, not just movement, they're action points, or you can reset 2 units, or you can have the Champion move. It's, what do you want?
Yeah. No, it's always a tricky consideration in this game.
I think it's fairly balanced. The Wizard King is a little more struggling. I haven't seen any comments about them yet. Uh, Other than that, there's of course general class balance, which I don't think we'll be dipping into.
Yeah, I'll probably cover that a little bit after we are done recording here, but I did want to look at those items. There's like a javelin and what were the other two?
Yeah, let me open up the forge here. So the skirmisher weapons, I think they're still categorized as other. I'm not sure if that's going to be changed.
Mhm.
There's 3 new ones. The sword and net, which gives you throw net. If I remember, that ability cannot miss. Yeah,
Nice. It's pretty good.
it is base, so it could scale potentially with additional effects. And the sword and kunai, which also cannot miss, has no additional effects, but hits harder. Might have a shorter cooldown. No, it's the same.
Yeah, it's pretty similar actually.
So it mainly just has more damage, and it's the ninja option, if you will.
I love that they took the time to add these because it is extra animations and that does it's not nothing.
Yeah, I'm assuming this was taken from the shade unit,
Hmm.
but it might be a unique animation. I'm not sure. The javelin is the last one. Javelin itself, people probably know. The Sunderer has this, the Barbarian Sunderer.
Yeah, I love that they brought this into the item forge because they mentioned it in one of the dev streams.
Yeah, they wanted to expand on these weapons, and they did not have the time to do so last major update, so they got pushed back a little. If I look at these, they're all for Ranger. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned
Yes.
earlier that maybe some of the tags are missing for the new classes, but I would assume a javelin isn't really a Death Knight weapon. Like, I don't know. It maybe Spellblades or
No,
Death Knights can, but I don't think they can.
but you'll see on the hero class, it will list the compatible weapons.
Right.
But then the weapons themselves, they don't list the class. So that's a little oversight here.
Yeah, that'll be easy to add in later.
I'm assuming that will happen. Maybe they already know. If not, now they will.
Yeah. All right. So now that we've talked about these items and the new hero class options that you get when you level up the Spellblade and the Death Knight, I think we can just jump back into this this post by the developers on the open beta. The next thing they have here is just basically some changes to the loadouts that you can choose. Now, if you're playing Barbarian, you can get a Javelin loadout or a Sword and Net loadout. Nothing too exciting here, so we'll just jump past that. Mention that Cody already talked about this. For the most part, I think we covered everything here. There's something about Eldritch Sovereigns that we didn't mention, but I think we got the important stuff, right?
Yeah, the question I still have is whether or not Eldritch Sovereign stats were reduced. I think the answer is no, because they are struggling. They need the help. So it's something I'd like to confirm later.
Right.
The
Yeah,
rest we've touched on it, yeah.
I don't know what enthralling truth does off the top of my head, but that seems pretty minor compared to what you're mentioning. I agree. Like I haven't been seeing Eldritch Sovereigns as much for me. They are the Chaos Pulse machines. That's what they do. That's what they're there for. Like they don't have to be amazing. They just need to get the dice roll.
Yeah, they in this new world of big angry dragons, they have trouble farming efficiently. They get jumped from the other side of the map by a blinking lance hero and one shot, and there are some issues.
Yeah, I kind of wish charge units couldn't teleport, but that's like it's also part of what gives build variety
Yeah,
fun. Like it's
it's
nice to
hard to
build your
get.
own thing.
You need to be deep into the astral tree, 6 affinity to get it, but it is very powerful.
Totally. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like six affinity is a lot for some people, but not a lot for other people who play the game regularly. Anyways, we
It,
can get into warrior, defender, mage, and well, ritualist is like
right.
the easiest one to talk about here. Ritualist is barely changed at all. It's just the um astral bond giving retaliation is now not giving +2 but +1. I think some people were using a lot of life steal on their magic origin units to
Um,
try and get like a lot of retaliations. I don't know. I think it's probably fine at +2. We
the
talked about it. Eh.
Yeah, the update's confusing because retaliations are capped at 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think so
And
too.
you get them from hastened as well. Polearms, unless they changed, I believe polearms get them from champion metal. So you can overcap without having this bond active.
Hmm.
So question mark, I don't mind it, but it wasn't necessary.
That actually reminds me of how you mentioned that they changed grace to be something that caps out at 3. We're not there yet, but I do think that's an interesting enough point that I want to bring it up relatively early here. Yeah, because a lot of the debuffs and buffs into your mod, the evolved mod, they cap out at 3, and then I guess they did something like that with grace, right?
Yeah, I think it's mainly the power is just way too high. If you have 5 stacks of grace, they don't seem to expire. I thought they lasted a single turn.
Mm.
Apparently they're just permanent until triggered.
Ooh.
That's a 50 health shield in a way, right?
Yeah.
There are ways around it, like single action charge attacks. They deal a lot of damage. They only figure 1 stack. From what I've seen, the developers seem to, I guess, when something is too powerful in their eyes, they will reduce it to less stacks or a lower percentage, but they're not doing it game wide.
Yeah, it's hard to make generalized statements like that because I think sometimes it will be one way and then sometimes it'll be the other way. I was just reading warrior classes you were chatting about that, and I'm seeing these first two things are now mutually exclusive. So there's less build variety when you make things mutually exclusive. It's one or the other. But I think that can be good because it means you can make each of those choices slightly more powerful. If you can't get both of them, you can like make them more powerful or more useful. And these things may have been really powerful and useful as is. I never play warrior, so I don't really know if distracting charge and reckless charge was a good thing to combine together. Is that something you were combining, Cody?
These two, I need to figure out where they are. Sorry for the cat in the background.
It's okay. Hi, kitty.
She got home and she's hungry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, Generally, we did not go that deep into the tree.
Right.
So it's the answer is probably no.
I don't think this is incredibly impactful, but it is interesting that these are no longer mutually exclusive. Unyielding no longer giving you extra resistance, I think is probably healthy because unyielding was pretty nice already, just because I think that's the one that keeps you on the battlefield longer, right?
Unyielding used to dispel negative status effects.
Oh, that's that one. Yeah, right. I remember seeing that now. There's a couple things that have similar names, but in a similar
I don't even remember it granting resistance. It's not on the tooltip.
I guess it did at one point. But graceful charge is related to what we were talking about. This gives less grace. Now that you can have less grace, it makes sense that when you get grace, you get less of it. Will breakers, just like changing the radius. War seeker is now saying that it only works on enemy units. There's a lot of things in here that I don't understand because I don't play warrior and I don't play defender too much, so I
Mm,
probably won't have too much to say about this stuff. But what
if
do you
I
think about the defender class changes, like specifically? Tireless retaliation grants tireless retaliation in defense mode and things like that because the
The
number
defender
changes are rare.
class has struggled quite a bit, so they definitely need help. It's hard to say where exactly and what will make them work without making them just AFK in defense mode and kill everything, because that's the other side of the coin.
Right.
Most of this stuff is fine. It's similar to the warrior tree, right? If you look at +2 to +1, 5 stacks to 3 stacks, a
They're
lot of these
just
things
yeah.
They
minor-ish.
make sense. The numbers were too high going in, and they've been brought down a little, so that's fine. Um, I am a little concerned that Defender's not being buffed, so to say. I don't see anything that really changes them.
Oh, it actually says this at the top how Tireless Retaliator works. It's a bit more niche, shuffled damage bonus on fighting skills. Okay, so now Tireless Retaliator doesn't make it so you just retaliate more. You have to go into defense mode. So that is making this slightly weaker, from what I'm understanding. I think we can move on to Mage. Mage is one I know. You know, Mage was good, is good now. It is going to, I think, have more damage from the Arcane Strength, if I'm reading this correctly. And then the jump from Lightning Evocation is now no longer 3 units, it's 2 units. That makes me really sad. Wait, no. I like having 3 jumps on my lightning evocation. That's gonna be a lot weaker.
Yeah,
Why?
it makes
Mm,
sense. This is the old Lightning Evocation.
mm-hmm.
Um, Considering the fact that we do still have the old Fire Evocation, I believe, maybe slightly higher damage. I can see why, especially with the bullet points above it. 10% damage, 10% damage, 10% damage.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's gonna be a lot.
Lightning Evocation can hit well over 50, 60 damage per target before any like shredding or weaknesses are applied. And it's easier to pull off because the range on with 3 jumps is pretty massive. You'll always be hitting something somewhere because it's a 3 hex jump. Whereas fire needs to be, in that specific area. You can't move. You have to be in the range. It's harder to apply.
I'm noticing something really interesting at the bottom here. Displacement only triggers on melee attacks. Do you like that? Or do you just think that's weird?
Um, that might be worse in a way because you could interrupt a ranged volley with displacement.
Ah, yes, I see what you're saying. They're probably trying to help, but I think that actually could hurt.
Like now, displacement is just losing value, and it was already kind of. I don't know if they did this to the units. That would be my question. So the phase beast and the gremlin.
Right. Oh
Curious
yeah,
if they have the same change.
that's very that's a very good point to bring up because I don't know if that would have been mentioned later on. I don't think it is if there is that change because I don't remember seeing that in the list. But there is a pretty long list here. But no,
Yeah, we might pass it by. The main thing is with this placement is you can get shot at 3 times right from a distance, and you just take the full volley.
yeah. No, I think that it's interesting to mention that displacement is not in the Spellblades tree and it's not in the Death Knight's tree, and it's changed pretty significantly in the Mage's tree. Although I don't think they took it out because they think displacement was um, too weak or not working. It's kind of counterproductive. It
Mm.
could have been that that was the feedback they were getting, and so they wanted you moving around the map less. Because sometimes you can use like a range attack to displace an enemy to get in range for melee attacks, and that can be really painful when your defensive tool makes it easier for them to do damage to you.
Yeah, displacement, in my opinion, should go backwards always, but well, it doesn't.
Right, kind of like the darters thingy. It would be cool if that was built in. I just think it'd be trickier. Now, Ranger, I don't. I love the idea of Ranger, but I never play them. I don't know any of these changes. I haven't looked at them at all. Let's see. Go for the kill now works on all attacks, not just melee and physical range attacks. So now you can use magic items to trigger that, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little buffed for like some shenanigans with abilities that you might have picked up somewhere.
Wait,
It's all right.
snapshot was not always facing you towards the target you were shooting. It's like you're doing a trick shot or something.
Uh, 360 no scope.
It's basically fatal strikes. Okay, we don't. I don't. Yeah, remember that one off the top of my head. Critical skirmishers no longer showing up. Now show up in the unit panel. A lot of this stuff wasn't showing up in the unit panel. Now you can actually see this. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, they're very selective on that. There's a lot of things that do, a lot of things that don't. I have not found the logic in when something should show up.
I like having more information than less, so I think it's good. I like this change.
I
Uh,
would turn them all on, but then you'd be scrolling for like a minute.
Do it. I want it.
So
All right. So soul draining strikes is different. I don't remember this one. This is going to inflict 2 remorse when attacking a with a single action attack. So it's just better now. It's slightly
yeah,
better. I think remorse
that's
wasn't that
that's
amazing anyway. So
Shadow Adept or Initiate, I believe. That's what
right.
that's from.
Relatively early. You can get it relatively early. All right. So I don't know what's in here. So gonna try and move through it relatively quickly. If you see anything important that I miss, let me know.
Mhm.
General stuff is like okay. There's lore entries, great. This is slightly weaker. You're getting less mana from the mines from the Empire skill. I don't think that's actually even worth like talking about. It's like, yeah, it's a little change. Cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's an unnecessary nerf, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's like cool. There it is. We can move on. AI improved the likelihood of them to use the transformations, racial transformations. Apparently they weren't using them, so now they do. Great. That sounds good. They probably should use that. Combat AI is more likely to move before using its free ability, and it understands commands now, or better. It's able to understand
Mhm.
it more than it was previously. Astral Ward is supposed to be better. Melee units are supposed to move away from the front line when using a ranged ability. Is that helpful? I guess I could be
I'm
helpful.
not
That sounds
sure.
counterproductive though. Um, hmm. Reduced threat projection range of melee from 4 to 3 hexes. Threat projection range of melee. So
Yeah, it's the
ranged
amount of
units don't feel like
hexes
running as far away
where
from them.
they so this is the hex range where a melee unit's like, I am threatening, stay away from me. So they reduced it by 1 hex. That's odd.
Oh, I see.
They-
It's the AI's logic of I'm too. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was like, where's this in game? It's not. It's an AI logic. Got it. Got it. Um, threat of 70% when victory is certain, so units aren't skittish about winning. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't play with the AI that much in the late game, so I'm going to move past that. Combat. Now Ring of Possession is
Well, keep in
different.
mind it does matter for auto combat
That's fair.
because your units will also be AI.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it does come into play here. But I'm going to move on to apparently there's a things that are supposed to change on target killed, and now the exclusions are no longer non-vital, but to friendly units. You're not supposed to be able to get the killed target effects on your own units. So like summoning in a guy to kill them off is it's not going to work now. Is what I'm understanding. But if an enemy summons something in, you can still get the trigger to work. Does that
Yeah, I'm
make sense to you?
wondering. I see how removing it by killing your own units makes sense, but the way I read this is it allows non-vital units now, like combat summons. I'm not sure that was needed.
Well, there's a lot of ways to bring in non-vital units, so I think being able to trigger that off of the enemies once is probably good. If like what they were
Maybe it's a
concerned about was
punishment.
killing your own friendly units, this should help with that.
Yeah, this might be a punishment for people bringing in a whole bunch of summons and throwing them at the front line.
Yeah, I mean it can be fun to try and play that way, but it's probably not the best way to play. Oh, we talked about this earlier. Yeah, Grace has changed. Vicious Killer is different. You mentioned that earlier. The this is something you looked into. Yes, since Astral Bond changed on the hero class, it would make sense that it changed on the summoner unit. Now the retaliations are +1 instead of +2. But you mentioned earlier about the limit to retaliations. You hit that pretty quickly, so not a big deal. All right, what do we have here? Conjure Summoning Rift. I never ever use that, so I'm just gonna skip it. Oh, Sword, Harmony no longer loses devotion when vowing to destroy an umbral dwelling. Well, yes, that means that's logical. I've heard a lot of people complaining about this.
Yeah,
um,
a little counterproductive.
what else do we have? Or Sworn, Peacebringer, and Sealbearer. I know Sealbearer. That's the mage unit. The
Yeah,
Peacebringer is
the
which one?
this is the archer, the horse archer
Ah,
unit.
Harmony. Right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
the seal bearer, that unit was massively overstated for its tier.
I had a
Like
feeling.
it's really that simple. They just had higher stats than any other unit of tier and class,
Yeah.
without any like downsides as to why they had this. I believe these values are in line with like an evoker, a pyromancer. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you got the resources there to check that quickly. And yeah, Peacebringer was very popular. Boosting their line shots with the base damage thingies modifiers is not necessary. It increased the damage it seems here, which I feel like some people
That's
will
fine.
complain about. No, you think it's okay?
No,
Because the
it's
line shot was
fine.
pretty strong, wasn't it? Is it just because it's a line shot, not the damage itself, really?
It's because of being a base ability. Every time you cast an enchantment, and generally these are +2, -1 for the range units, like
Mm,
frost arrows, poison arrows, etc. You would gain +4 elemental damage, -2 physical,
right,
and
and
you
that
would
adds up.
stack these over and over and over. And the more damage channels you have, the more damage you're getting because of the fact that the game numbers always round up.
Yeah, fair.
So if you have 2 and you're getting 10% bonus damage, which would be 2.2, you're just getting 3 straight up.
And it is pretty. It's easy to miss this part, but it's super significant. Reduced range from 4 to 3 will actually really hurt this
I think
guy's
that's
ability
fair.
to engage. But it's a line shot, so it's like the first hex that you hit is 3 away from you, then you can hit 4 and 5, I believe, right?
Yeah, but I think the main reason is they come with a mount and they come with 48 movement.
Yeah, they're
So you
very
need to
mobile.
factor in that they're moving 6 hexes before they even fire.
Slot. Wait, line shot was a single action. It's not even a full action. I don't know this unit. I don't
Yeah.
use it. I
Yeah,
haven't
no,
played
it's a
Harmony
single
much.
action.
Oh, that's so
So what
good.
they would
That's
do
really
is
good.
they would move 6 hexes, then fire another 4, that's 10, then hit 2 more, that's 12. And that would deal like 60, 70 damage on a critical hit.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot, a lot. All right, factions. This doesn't seem like too much right here in the first bit. They gave them ambitions. Ooh, good job. Now, society traits slightly more interesting. We have reduced knowledge from the keepers of knowledge. It's from down from 20 to 10. I don't think that's actually worth talking about. It's just neat that they've started to change this because I guess that
Um,
was a lot of knowledge.
I don't think it was required, honestly.
Yeah,
The trait has one issue. It's broken in a team game because you are pre-allied to people, so you get this knowledge bonus automatically.
I like this change. Have you read this change yet?
No, I heard someone mention cult of personality.
20 gold upkeep per
Uh,
renown level will add up. That's really funny. I don't know if it makes it so you can actually use Cult of Personality because this is a really strong one, but I think
I'm
that's an
wondering
interesting way to do it.
if this begins from the first turn. Like, are you at level 1 at the start of the game?
Right, or is it level 0? I hope it counts as level 1 because I think having extra heroes is really good, but I
You'd
don't know.
immediately pay 20 gold.
Yes, do it. Punish them. Right, ambitions. This has changed the upkeep to plus 50 on the hero instead of yeah, I get that. I think that's healthy because otherwise you shuffle around and yeah. I don't like the idea of shuffling around just to avoid paying 10 gold per unit. Steward now gives 40 renown for having positive stability for 5 turns. I think that makes sense. Steward was one of the ones you can't pick at the beginning of the game, so I believe it's a good one, but people don't see it as often as some of the others, right?
I don't remember Steward. I'm pulling it up.
It's one of the ones that needs like a size 15 city or something. Like it's more for late game if I remember
Grow the
correctly.
city to 16 population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end here. The item forge changed slightly. There's now some item skins that were missing from the item forge. Sword and pistol reduced damage. The crossbow reduced damage. Let's get into tomes now. Alchemy made it so that this now dispels 2 negative status effects instead of all. No, no, Tome of Alchemy. No,
Yes.
why?
Yes, Tome of Alchemy.
No. All right, I guess it's Tome
Yes.
of Souls from now until the end of time now. Unless, wait, okay, no,
Tome
there's
of
no Tome of
Alchemy,
Souls in here.
yes.
Good, good. That got me really nervous for a second. I like my dispel alls. This is not okay. This is not okay, but it's okay. Things are gonna change as part of the game. The Alchemist Last now costs more gold and production, which is probably healthy. It's a really good building. Tome of Cleansing
Yeah.
Flame. This what you
Yeah.
were complaining about in that last?
So funny, all fun fact, all 3 of these bugs are bugs I reported.
Good job. You did it. I'm so happy for you, Cody, because this was a big one here specifically. Not doing less
Yeah.
damage to the target standing next to
So
your target.
I am assuming the obstacles did 0 damage. That's kind of weird. Nothing breaks in combat. Okay. The burning, my complaint was just it's not on the tooltip,
Yeah.
right? It's hidden information. The fire cleave itself, that is major. That is a proper nerf to these units because all of their enchantments were getting full value on all 3 targets that were being cleaved, and it skyrocketed their damage.
No, I think that's fair. I can't believe I didn't notice it until you mentioned it because I just saw those units wrecking things and we're like, well, I guess it's just a tier 4 unit. It's just no, it's a not
I mean,
quite.
that's part of it. It is a tier 4 racial and a tier 3 tome.
Hmm.
Um, that
Nice.
is a thing. So
It's nice to be able to apply that stuff to things that aren't mythic units and have that tier 4 tag. Now, we're getting close to the end. We just had the shadow thing here where it says the conjure spell word is slightly differently. Now selects about empty hex. That seems like the other thing that I skipped, the summoning rift. Updated
um,
description. Let's move on to the list of units here. There's things for a couple things like the ghost ship now applies to remorse, but I think for the most part we can just like read this and then say it applies to things. So cannot be displaced. This is easy to miss 'cause it's pretty far down here,
I
but I
thought this
think
existed at least up to a certain point.
I don't know if it was on all of these units, but maybe
That I
just
don't
some of
know.
them, maybe some of the tier 5 dragons or tier 4 dragons or giants or whatever, they had it, but not all of them. But no, this
I
is good.
remember this was on, for example, the Dragon Lord, and I think it's hidden in the large target tooltip. It says something like immune to most displacing effects.
Okay, well, now these ones cannot be displaced, I guess. It's just cool. Displace effects from abilities previously sometimes worked against units with large target and sometimes did not.
Yeah.
Now they consistently work on all units except for things that cannot be displaced. This influences these abilities. There's a lot of abilities,
So what
like
they're
the Tide
saying
Spirit.
is, rather than have large target have this weird tooltip where it said maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
Now you just have a clear ability on those units, and everything else can just be displaced.
that's fair, and I think probably much clearer now.
Yeah, it's
Following
good for clarity.
We have a few effects that were reworded from displaced to teleported because they work on all units. Okay, so the Hysteria Storm is not a displace, it just moves your guys around, so that can work on a Karag or an Ironclad. I like this. There's some other things that do, I guess, teleporting like that, like the So Confusion Siege project, and what's this? Displacing Reality.
I have no idea what that is.
Apparently that's a thing, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Increased
I think
magic.
it's a wonder. Yeah, it's a wonder enchantment.
Oh, right. Yeah, the Wonders can sometimes give you stuff like that. Okay, I'm glad that these guys are getting more damage because I think a lot of people don't like the tier 2 battle mages, and I see a couple tier 2 battle mages in here.
This is very funny because I made this exact same change recently to the Warlock, the Awakener, the Spellweaver, to most of those units, honestly.
Well, I'm glad you're making these changes because it seems like people agree, or like it's great minds think alike. Who knows what
Like
the
not even
circumstances are?
long. Maybe less than 3 weeks ago I did this, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah, and looking at what's left here, it's just a bunch of like little fixes, which I generally don't like to read through. But thanks for joining me for this video, Cody. I think that you added a lot to the discussion.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, see you around. Have a good one.